Troubling developments for groups in Nebraska trying to address a serious topic, helping victims who survived domestic violence. An article published last month from our partners at Flatwater Free Press reveals the government funding budgeted to help survivors may never come. Our Mike McKnight spoke with the executive director of The Bridge, a Nebraska nonprofit which aims to prevent domestic violence and sexual assault. She says 2025 ended with domestic violence cases increasing dramatically, adding that government funding and grants for victim services have decreased.
So the less money available for us to provide preventative services, to provide them safe shelter until they can get into a safe home, to provide them with bus tickets to get them out of the volatile or the violent area to a safer location. We start losing those abilities to get them to a safe place, and people they stay and they are exposed to more violence.
An annual report from August from the Domestic Abuse Death Review Team shows there were already more domestic violence deaths in the first half of 2025 than in all of 2024. Denied medical claims can feel like a nightmare. Still ahead on First Alert 6, find out the critical